So there is a difference between order of operations and solving an equation. The order of operations is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses, exponents, multiply or divide from left to right, add or subtract from left to right. So that's the order of operations. So if you're doing the order of operations, you start with the parentheses. So 7 minus 9 is negative 2. Then you do your exponent. Negative 2 to the third power is negative 8. Then you multiply or divide from left to right. So now you just go from left to right. 5 times negative 8, negative 40. Negative 40 divided by 8, negative 5. Negative 5 times 2, negative 10. So that's order of operations. Solving equations follows some of the same steps, except the end of it is reversed. So with solving equations, instead of parentheses, we distribute, which is using parentheses. Instead of exponents, we combine like terms. So CLT means combine like terms. So 9x plus 6x, you would combine. Variables on both sides is only for solving equations. So that's when you move the variables to one side. But notice for order of operations, it's multiply or divide, then add or subtract. They get reversed when you're solving an equation. So that's the primary difference. When you solve an equation, you do adding and subtracting first, multiplying and dividing second. So if you see the equation that's written here as an example, first you distribute. Then you combine your like terms. So negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. You have variables on both sides, so the smaller one has to move. 4x is smaller, so you subtract 4x. 2x plus 1 is 7. Subtract 1. And then divide by 2. So there is a difference between order of operations and solving an equation. It's just a small difference, but it's a difference nonetheless. So again, whomever said the wrong step yesterday, you actually did something that's going to benefit a lot of people. So even when you do something wrong, you can ultimately be learning something. Any questions between the two before we get back to what we were doing? All right, so just to recap what we did yesterday. We looked at formulas and literal equations, basically equations that have more than one variable. So the main thing when you're solving an equation that has more than one variable, you think about what's already in the equation and you take the opposite of it. So this is where it's absolutely important to know how to take the opposite of something. So for the first four examples, some of them we started out by putting in a different number for the variable that we don't want, solving it out so that we know what we need to do. When we got to examples 3 and 4, we just needed to know what do we have, what's the opposite, and do it. So we're going to do the same things with example 5 and example 6. And do the same things with 5 and 6. So we have solve xy minus 5 equals 15 for y. So that means for this equation, use a different color here, for this equation, we want y by itself. We want y by itself. That means everything with the y has to go. Everything that's on the same side with the y has to go. So, there's y. What else is over there with the y? So x is over there. What is x doing? So right now, what is x doing? Multiplying. Right now, x is multiplying. And we also have this 5. What is the 5 doing? Subtracting. So now that we know what it's doing, now we take the opposite. So, what's the opposite of multiplying? Divide. So that means we're going to divide by x. And what's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. We're going to add 5. So far what we've done is we figured out what's happening right now. That way we can take the opposite of it. Any questions before we go and do it? Alright. Not seeing you're hearing anything, so let's go and do it. So we have xy minus 5 equals 15. So when we're solving an equation, what comes first? Adding or dividing? Adding will go first. So we're going to add 5 on both sides. So you have xy, the 5 drop out, equals, what's 15 plus 5? 20. So we have xy equals 20. So we added the 5. And now we just have to divide by x. So the x's drop out. So y equals 20 over x. That's it. Problem's over. So think about what we did, because you'll probably find out that it's not as hard as you might think it is. First, we looked at the problem and identified what is happening right now. Second, we took the opposite of everything. And then third, we just did it. What's happening right now? What's the opposite? Then do it. Any questions on example 5?
If we solve for x, it would be the exact same way.
If we solve for x, then we would still add 5, but you would divide by y instead of dividing by x.
Okay.
So, excellent question there. Any other questions in example 5? Turn your condition over to example 6. Alright, so example 6. Alright, so example 6. We're solving for C. So we want C by itself. F equals 9 over 5 times C plus 32. Now, this formula, you've probably used it in a science class. That's the formula for changing something in Celsius to something in Fahrenheit. So if you've ever been out of the country, outside of the United States, most countries tend to use Celsius. We're one of the few countries that use Fahrenheit. So there's a formula that is used to adjust Fahrenheit and Celsius. That's the formula right there. But we're going to do the same exact steps. Somebody came off mute. I apologize. I jumped the gun there. Question? All right. So, you're cool. Just pick up where I just gotta catch up to us. So, first step. What is happening right now? Right now, what's happening in the problem? What is on the same side with the C? So 9 over 5 is over there. What is 9 over 5 doing? So right now, what is 9 over 5 doing? It's multiplying. So we have to know what it's doing now in order to take the opposite. What else is on the same side with the C? So F is on opposite side. So there's C, there's F. So what else is over there with the C? One other thing that's over there. What about that 32? Isn't 32 on the same side of the equation with the letter C? Maybe I need to write it this way so that some of you see it. There's the C. So 9 over 5 is over there, and 32 is over there. What is 32 doing? Adding. So plus 32 is adding 32. So that's what it's doing right now. That's the first step. Remember, for those of you who are struggling, you got to ask for help. Yeah. You were here first order. If you don't ask for help, I'm going to assume you know what you're doing. If you photo map all your work, you're getting a 0. I'm not grading photo math, I'm grading you. especially for those folks who have their cameras off. You know, let's see, some of you all, I know you have your camera off, but you've been doing what you're supposed to be doing. Some of y'all have y'all cameras off and often log on land. So that can't happen if you're trying to do what you need to do to pass class. So we know what we're doing right now. Now we need to take the opposite. What's the opposite of multiplying?
Divide.
So that means you're going to have to divide by 9 over 5. When we start solving this problem. What's the opposite of adding? Subtracting. So you're going to have to subtract 32. So the first step is figure out what you're doing right now. Second step is to do the opposite. The third step is actually solve it. Third step is to solve it. So now let's go ahead and solve it. So when we solve an equation, what comes first? Dividing or subtracting? Subtraction. Subtract 32 on both sides. So you get F minus 32 equals 9 over 5 C. So we get the subtraction, now we divide. Divide by 9 over 5. So, when we divide by a fraction, there's a 3-letter acronym that we do when we divide by fractions. Begins with a K, begins with a C, begins with an F. Yeah, answer. So keep, change, flip. So we have C equals F over 32 divided by 9 over 5. Make F over 32 a fraction. We're going to keep the first fraction. Change division to multiplication. And we're going to flip the second fraction. That changes to 5 over 9. I want my word to be neat. So your answer is 5 over 9 times F minus 32. I wouldn't get upset if you didn't multiply that. That's actually how the formula looks in a lot of your textbooks, science textbooks. If you multiplied it out, that's fine. You will end up with a decimal, so I will tell you that in advance. But for a formula like that, you can leave it like that. All right, questions on example 6? All right, now here is this on our homework? I believe it is on your homework, except it asks you to solve for F instead of solving for C. And if it is on your homework, then hey, you just got work for free. I'm not going to complain about that. Alright, so before we move on to the word problems that are on the back, we'll go ahead and take a quick 2-minute break. Let's do this in word problem format. Example 7. I don't know why example 1 is there. The formula for finding the profit of a company is P equals R minus C. Solve the formula for R, then find the revenue for a company that produces $8,320 in profit and spends $5,640. So it's a 2-part problem. So one part of it is telling you to solve for R, and then one part is telling you to find the revenue. So we first need to solve for R. So we have P equals R minus C. What's on the same side with the R? C. What is C doing? Subtraction. So what's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. So that means you're going to add C to both sides. C's drop out. So P plus C is R. Like that, we done with the first part already. Done with the first part already. So now we use it to do the second part. P plus C equals R. It told you find the revenue for a company that produces $8,320 in profit. So P is profit, 8,320 plus spends $5,640. So spending money, that's a cost. When it costs you something, that means you gotta spend money. 5,640. That's easy enough. All we gotta do is add those up. So, what does that add up to? Hopefully you got a calculator somewhere around there. We don't take this long when we take the quiz on Friday. 13,960. Okay. I at least know Chicago, Mir, and Greg was with me. Let's see, and Morgan Calhoun and Mir, they with me. I need some of y'all to speak up. So, that's it for example 7. Questions on example 7? So y'all stop telling yourself, I'm just going to wait until after school to ask. Okay, so if Mr. Lowe gets called to the principal's office and the principal wants to talk to me, guess what? That's my boss. I'm going to go talk to them. you just out of luck. That's hard, but that is what it is. So stop putting stuff off because you figure, oh, I don't want other people to know that I'm messing up. So you messing up. They ain't perfect, neither ain't you. Move on with it. Example 8. The formula for the area of a triangle is A equals base times height divided by 2. Solve the formula for H, then find the height of a triangle with an area of 41.7 and a base of 4.4. So again, it's another two-part problem. So A equals base times height divided by 2. So what's happening right now in this problem? So the height, H is what we want by itself. What else is around the H? It's multiplying times B. So B is multiplying to it. What else is happening? And then 2 is dividing. So that means now we can take our opposites. What's opposite of multiplication? Division. So we're going to have to divide by B. What's opposite of division?
Multiplication.
We're going to have to multiply by 2. Again, the reason why I'm doing the steps this way is so that you can do it yourself when I'm not there. I'm not there when you do your homework. I'm not there when you do your quiz. I'm not there when you take the test. So it's not like I can tell you how to do it all. But it doesn't help if you don't practice and you don't ask questions where you stuck. And most of you all aren't stuck. Let me just make that clear. Some of you all aren't stuck, but some of you all, I know you're stuck because your grades have already proved it. Can't be stuck all your life. Well, we got a list. Do we have to write the right now and the opposite? No, you don't. I write it so that you can see what's happening. You don't have to write it. You can just go right ahead and do it. And in your case, Alyssa, I trust that you know that. I definitely want you to go ahead and just do it. All right. So, this is new. We have multiplying and dividing. Normally, we would have a multiplying and an adding, or a multiplying and a subtracting. So, when you have multiplying and dividing in there for an equation, start with the multiplying. So we're going to multiply 2 on both sides. Why? Because we want to get rid of the fraction. Anytime we can get rid of a fraction, we're going to do it. So 2a equals b times h. Then we divide by b. That gives you 2a over b equals h. Questions, part 1. That's the first part of the problem. Not, let's keep it going. So, now that we know what h is equal to, we're going to use it Now that we have h by itself, we use it for the second part of the problem. Find the height of a triangle with an area of 41.7. So that means A is 41.7 and a base of 4.4. So B is 4.4. So now we just plug it in, just like we did at the very beginning of the school year. 2 times 41.7 divided by 4.4. So now we let the calculator do some work. Remember, if you don't have a calculator, I did send you a link that will allow you to put a calculator on your Chromebook for free. 2 times 41.7 is 83.4. So 83.4 divided by 4.4, what's that? You get a nice long-ish number. Let's see, what's it got? 18.954, and that's what I got. 18.954, and that's inches. What's it got? That's what more than got. Questions, example 8. All right, so for example 9, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to give you, hold on a second, let's get a question. Wait, this is a repeating decimal, so do we need to add the repeating sign? So since it is repeating, I wouldn't take off if you didn't put it, but if you do choose to put it, just put the bar over the part that's repeating. But I wouldn't take off for it. So, good question. So, problem 9. The formula for the perimeter of a rectangle is P equals 2L plus 2W. Solve the formula for L, then find the length if the perimeter is 402.8 and the width is 73.9 centimeters. So, let me give you, let's start solving it out. P equals 2L plus 2W. L is what we want by itself. So, what's happening right now? What else is around the L? So what is 2W doing?
Multiplying.
It's not multiplying, because if it was multiplying, it'd be attached to it like that. It's adding. Plus sign. Put your glasses on, girl. There's your glasses. Be all good. We also got a 2. We also got this 2 sitting in front of the L. What is that 2 doing? It's multiplying. So that's what's happening right now. So now let's do the opposite. Let's talk some opposites. So what are the opposites?
Subtract.
So I'm going to have to subtract 2W.
And then divide.
And I'm going to have to divide by 2. See? See what, this is what happens when you try it. The worst thing that can happen is that it's wrong and you gotta erase it. That's the worst thing that can happen. So now let's solve it out. Subtract 2w on both sides. P minus 2w equals 2l. And then divide by 2. That's P minus 2w divided by 2 equals L. Don't know until you give it a try. Questions before we continue? Bring that on over there. Let's finish the second part of the problem. Find the length if the perimeter is 402.8. So that's 402.8 minus 2 times the width is 73.9 divided by 2. So we do some work now. 2 times 73.9, where my calculator at? 402.8 minus 147.8. Subtract off the top. It's 255. 255 divided by 2. 127.5. That's centimeters. And that's your length. Questions on example 9? Struggling? It's on you to ask questions. I can't pull it out of you. So we're going to do example 10. Take care of some homework questions with whatever time we have left. Alright, example 10. The simple interest formula is I equals P times R times T. Find the interest rate for an investment of $1,500 that earned $54 in simple interest in 1 year. Solve the formula for R, then find the interest rate using the numbers provided. So if I told you the order, you gotta go in. So, if I equals P times R times T. So, let me explain to you what those letters mean. I means interest. P is the investment. Interest rate is R. And T is time. T means time. So it said solve the formula for R. So what is P doing? Multiplying. What is the T doing? It's multiplying as well. So, opposite time. What's the opposite of multiplying? So we're going to divide by P and by T. There's no sense in dividing twice. If both of them have to be divided, do them at the same time and get it over. You didn't think you could do that? Yes, you can do that. So divide both sides by P by T. If you didn't know you could do that, now you do. P's drop out, and the T's drop out. There you go. Honor solved. Any questions before we do part two? Finish that part of the problem. Alright, so let's do that part of the problem. So they told you to find the interest rate with an investment of $1,500. So P is the investment, that's $1,500. $54 in simple interest. So I is $54 in 1 year. So that means T is equal to 1. So we can solve it out. 1,500 times 1 is 1,500. We gonna get ourselves a decimal, messing around with this 1,500. 54 divided by 1,500 is 0.036. We always do top divided by bottom. It doesn't matter if you get a decimal. That doesn't mean you did it wrong. You just got a decimal. You'll live. Now, since this is an interest rate, you have to multiply it times 100 because an interest rate is a percent. So the answer is 3.6%. We haven't gotten to percents yet. That's going to come in probably another few days. We'll start dealing with percents. Percents you'll be using the rest of your life. Questions with example 10 or on any of the 4 word problems? We did some good work today for those of you who participated, chimed in, did what you need to do.